Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, January 10th, 2025, and we have our all-star panel of top local journalists, Josh Molina of Newshawk and Santa Barbara Talks, and Gwyn Lurie, executive editor of the Montecito Journal, with us today. And guys, I don't think we can really start without mentioning what's going on in LA County, the fires that are just continuing to rage, tens of thousands of people evacuated, buildings destroyed, whole neighborhoods. And it of course connects to what we are remembering this week. The debris flow 7 years ago, which killed 23 people in Montecito, and there was a commemoration last night. Gwen, I know you got a lot of friends in LA and have been helping them deal with what's going on. What kind of lessons, I guess, can we take from our experience in Montecito to help people in LA?
Well, thank you for asking that question, Jerry, because I do think it's probably the most helpful question that could be asked right now. And I think that, look, for people here, there's a lot of PTSD, and this is very triggering for people here. A lot of people have come up here, and I think we need to welcome them and help them in any way we can. And as far as lessons learned, when after the 1/9 debris flow, what we came to eventually, and it took us longer than I wish it had, but it was like we realized the cavalry wasn't coming. There's a lot of finger pointing right now at Gavin Newsom, at Karen Bass, everyone has someone to blame. And the fact of the matter is, we'll figure out what happened, what went wrong, but the devil is in the details on this thing, and it will take some time to unravel. But I would just urge community members in Santa Barbara to create support groups um, to start doing something that could give yourselves and each other hope. And that's why we created the TPRC, the Partnership for Resilient Communities, which ultimately raised money to put the nets up on the mountains. And it was certainly not the be all and end all to save the community, but it was something to help us to feel like we were trying to take care of ourselves, because this is a hot mess, pun intended. And it is bigger than anything we saw here. It is, there have been tens of thousands of structures burned. Nobody who knows anybody in LA doesn't know anybody who knows anybody, someone in LA knows someone who's lost their house. I mean, it is, and it's not just houses. I mean, Palisades has been leveled.
Yeah.
Malibu has been leveled. Like the stores people went to, the doctors they frequented, the dentists, the supermarkets, they're gone. So it's going to take some time and a lot of love to get people through this. But I just say there that we love to believe that government can solve all of our problems, but the quicker we could get to how can we help ourselves and how can we help each other, I think the quicker the healing process will be.
Yeah. And Josh, you and I were talking on your podcast just a few days ago about Donald Trump refusing to give disaster relief to California, and fast forward, and now we have a disaster, and he's already threatening to do that. And the money that President Biden is approving is going to, it's going to be in the pipeline. It's going to take a while. So I think that's going to be a real serious issue for California.
Yeah, and I just want to say, avoid some, online or, some of these comments online because it's really shameful that conservatives who are using this as a reason to attack Karen Bass or Gavin Newsom and making it a political thing and their defense of Trump. And it's just it just hurts their credibility politically when they can take a natural disaster like this, of course, fueled by infrastructure problems, and turn it into some promotion of Trump, an anti-Democrat thing. It's shameful, and it just hurts their credibility on any other topic. And that's what we're seeing, at least, in some spaces online, and that's very unfortunate.
I agree so much with Josh, and I would add to that, it's unhelpful. It's unhelpful at a moment that a lot of people are suffering. It's also begs, the conversation about the insurance issues that we all deal with. A lot
Yeah,
of these
next.
people were not insured. They could not get insurance or are vastly underinsured, through the FAIR plan or what have you. So I just think this is going to be a lot to unravel and to rectify.
Yeah,
And
that's just gonna put the insurance crisis on steroids. We're gonna put together a show about that. All right. Well, we had a couple of government events this week. The swearing in of the Board of Supervisors with new First District Supervisor Roy Lee and new board president Laura Capps. And Josh, I guess you'd have to agree that the highlight of the day was probably Gwyn's major policy address at the beginning. What do you think?
Well, I do have to say that when Gwyn talks, especially in those big moments, there's an air of importance that comes with your style, your delivery, and it always feels special and momentous. And so I really enjoyed that. You've obviously given many speeches in your life and your career, and you know how to speak to an audience. So I thought that was great. I thought the whole ceremony was amazing. Actually, they had a Localina Junior High School band perform, and the conductor, I think his name was Hughes, Stephen Hughes. He was conducting them right in the boardroom, full of energy, enthusiasm, excitement. It was a very fresh rebirth tone to the Board of Supervisors hearing. And people were just happy and excited and hopeful, as Gwyn talked about in her speech. So I thought it was amazing. Like I thought, wow, this is like a really great ceremony. It's almost a 2-hour event, and I was really impressed. And Gwyn's talk about compromise and hope and being able to find a middle ground. And we don't always have to agree, but electeds can learn to compromise to find a path forward. I thought that was a message and a takeaway for sure. If I do have any commentary on anything, I did feel it was a little bit promotional of Roy Lee at the expense of maybe all five of them. And but it makes sense. The Montecito Journal was an early supporter of Roy. But I did feel like it was a little bit of a tinge of the Roy Lee show. But then again, he is the story. I mean, he shocked the world. He stunned. He knocked out the overconfident, arrogant incumbent, and he's there. So I mean, it makes sense. But that
Well,
was the only sense that I got was,
yeah.
wow, I wonder what's going to happen the first time Roy Lee and Gwyn disagree. How that's going to go.
Well, let me. I mean, because Gwyn, yeah, the word I think you had several themes in your talk, and the one that applied directly to him, other than Alfred E. Newman, was independence, which I think you really pointed to as something that he's bringing, and also a reason that he's there. That's a huge change.
well, first of all, I want to say I'm glad that Josh had some criticism of my speech because I was starting to get worried, like not recognizing him for a minute, that he was like all positive on me. So I felt that was good. Thank you for bringing us back to
I
earth.
remembered to flip the switch back in my head. I had turned it on before we went live. Yeah.
Now I take what you're saying. I really I think the reason that I gave a portion of my speech to Roy was really more than about his independence. Jerry is not. If you had been there, you would have known this. But
I read your speech
no, I'm
multiple times, Gwen.
no. Is that it was really about sometimes when you don't have tons of experience. We all know the downsides of that, but there are upsides of that too, which is that you come to the work with a fresh perspective and you're not jaded and you haven't been beat down so many times trying to make a permit system easier or trying to fix a cannabis situation, that you come with these fresh ideas because you don't know what you can't do. And so really what I was doing was urging the supervisors, who will no doubt take him under their wing, to also let him take them under his a bit, in terms of thinking about things a little differently and daring to think outside the box. So really, I was trying to make the point of the value he brings more than I was trying to make the Roy Lee show. But listen, what he did was, as you said, Josh, was momentous, and I thought, should be marked.
And then
As is it
another big theme you talked about, compromise, which I thought really went to Laura's comments when she took over as the board chair. She talked about cannabis. Hooray! Finally, we're going to get some balance on that, in terms of people who actually have to experience living around it. So she stated that pretty clearly. But she also she quoted Rahm Emanuel, the former mayor of
Mayor.
Chicago, and basically saying, that when rules or regulations are the problem, you really got to look at the results. And she was really talking about results, and I think she referenced Dignity Moves, for one thing, and then she talked about cannabis as well, which I think goes to your point, Gwyn, about compromise, and your thought that compromise has not aged well. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think, honestly, I think Laura hit it out of the park. I think she gave a great, hopeful, which the moment called for, right? Optimistic speech about what this board could do and what she hopes that they will do under her leadership. And, I think my biggest takeaway from her speech was there are times in government where things fail, which they invariably will sometimes, and leaders tend to blame the rules on and the laws on why they failed. And Laura's point was, if there are bad laws, change those laws. That laws should be put into place because they protect and support the well-being of the community and of community members. And if they're getting in the way, we should not be making progress in spite of the laws. They should be helping us get to where we want to go. And her point was, let's not just sit by and blame the laws. Let's look at those laws. And I thought it was a really smart, courageous point to make, or thoughtful point to make. So that was I thought that was really good. And I think it speaks, even more than to compromise, Jerry. I think it speaks to getting out of bed on a different side, thinking about things a little differently, not walking into work every day and then going, oh yeah, we got to figure out how to deal with that bad law. It's like, fix it.
Well, and bureaucracies tend to serve bureaucracies. I mean, and I think that's certainly been the case. Josh, you have other thoughts about the supervisors and how it's changed now or not changed, or what do you think?
Well, I did want to say one more thing related to Gwyn's speech, and I encourage everyone to watch it. It starts at an hour and 30 minutes into the board meeting, because she's funny. That's just analyzing the speech. The beginning, she has a great line where she's talking to the Board of Supervisors and says, "No one gets into this to get rich." And you think she's going to go like on a serious thing, but then she turns it and says, well, at least that's not the plan. And, everyone starts laughing, which is like this total, which was the other undercurrent of the speech, was these sort of subtle like references to the previous first district supervisor without mentioning his name, but mentioning the style of politics. So I thought that was, again, from a speech analysis, I would love to talk to you sometime one-on-one and like, how do you do that? Because it was structured really well, and I enjoyed that. And then all the literary references and all of that too. As far as the Board of Supervisors, I mean, this is a really exciting time because Laura is a very commanding leader. She's very thoughtful about her communication, and she's got Bob Nelson on her side to some degree, on a lot of the major
Yeah,
stuff, cannabis.
they're gonna do the compromise on the cannabis
And
stuff.
Roy Lee is right there, and then Joan is gonna be there as well, and Steve's gonna find his space as being sort of the one who's not like has a real strong buddy there like he did before. So I think it's a really strong time and a great time to be paying attention to this cannabis industry. I don't see, that's not going to be a great time for them in the next 4 years in terms of regulations. But also just in general, I got the sense that when I was there that this was a group that was really happy to be working with each other. And I have to say, previously, I got the sense that there were factions and that people were putting up with each other. They're not always going to agree now. Bob Nelson, of course, has a perspective. Steve, there's still going to be a little bit of that
And there
north-south
should
divide.
be.
And there should be, but the sense I get is they're really hopeful of finding some sort of compromise on these big policy issues. And that's kind of, we haven't had that for, 8 years or more.
I agree. You know what Joan said one thing. Joan gave a nice talk and read a lot of sort of letters from constituents about how the work the board had done had helped their lives, their personal lives. But she did say something about, she really feels like this board has each other's back. And I don't think that's the point. I don't think the point is having each other's back. I think it's being willing to engage in vigorous conversations, as I think they've done. I think they've done it on housing. I think recently they did it on cannabis. I think they've done it on, various issues. But I think it's not really about having each other's back because that smells a little bit like we're protecting each other from, being out there with our points of view, and that rubbed me a little bit. But I do think that it seems like they want to get along and work well together, and they don't want to they're kind of intent upon not being a dysfunctional board. So I think that's very auspicious.
I missed Roy's comments. What did he have to say?
Roy was brief and humble as he is. And I think I sort of thought, wow, I would have expected him to say more. And then I thought, it's kind of cool that he didn't. Like, he's very conscious that he's the new kid on the block, that he has a lot to learn. I think he's, said over and over, he's really committed to being on this listening tour in the next year, which is not to say that he isn't going to take positions and work really hard. Obviously, he already is doing that. But I think he just thanked, he wanted to thank his family and the voters for giving him this chance to be there. And I think he feels it's not lost on him that an immigrant kid from a Taiwanese family, has been elected to the Board of Supervisors of this, major county. And I think he takes that very seriously and humbly, and his speech reflected that.
Yeah.
You didn't quote Margaret Mead.
He did not. He did not. I'm going to send him a book on Margaret Mead.
All right. Well, one big issue that they're going to have coming up pretty quickly is this Sable pipeline business, which is the Washington Post had a big takeout on. I mean, it's a national story. And the strange thing is now, President Biden has signed measures to protect offshore areas from drilling very extensively in a way that's going to make it hard for Trump to undo. But paradoxically, at the same time, here we are in Santa Barbara, and we're about to restart transporting oil from offshore drilling. The supervisors have, I mean, whoever the decision maker on, I talked to Salute about this on Monday, and it's a really tricky thing, but the county has a small area here where they can say that the company doesn't have enough money for liability in case of of a of a spill. However, it doesn't look like they're going to have three votes either to do that. What did you have any sense about that, either one of you?
Well, isn't Exxon like holding $175 million of paper for
Yeah,
them?
well, Exxon is, yeah, and Exxon is not Sable. So I don't know. I mean, the county, did this kind of secret closed door settlement of litigation with Sable. And so the supervisors are all like, nothing we can do. But I think some of us, Linda Kropp was on the show not too long ago, would like to see a little more leadership on this. I know Joan has she has to recuse herself because she owns property. Her property is
I'm
near.
not exactly sure why one recuses. I mean, I don't 100% understand that, but I do. Someone told me Joan said recently this is going to take some real political theater to have the right thing happen here. Obviously, the right thing be to not let this happen in her opinion, I guess. And this is a really a big deal. I mean,
It's a huge deal, and the outrage is the community has not had any venue to express its views. It's
well,
an
but on the 25th of February, there's going to be a hearing now at the supervisors on
Yeah,
this.
on this issue. Now,
On this issue. And on the 30th of January, I believe CEC is hosting a strategy session at the Impact Hub on the Impact Hub on State Street, the CEC's home. And so, I think that's good. I mean, yeah, no one's talking about the fact that if this is restarted, it will keep California and Santa Barbara from meeting their greenhouse gas emission goals. Uh, do we need anything more than the recent fire, than the fire that's raging right now in Los Angeles? Like, at what point it's unbelievable. And by the way, there's a big upside for Sable on this. And I mean, the only upside is going to be for Texas oil. That's going to be
Yeah.
the upside. The downside, of course, is that Exxon and Sable are really passing the cost of this on to the residents of California. I mean, we're the ones that are going to pay the cost, and it will leak. We know it's a old damaged system that
Oh, they
one,
fixed it. They fixed it.
but there's still leaks in it.
No, I know.
You're kidding, right?
Yeah.
And it's really quite something. And by the way, I mean the other thing is that the fire marshal approved it without a hearing, which is amazing to me. So I mean, if I were
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom, I'd step
Well,
in.
Gavin took a total duck on this.
He needs to not. Gavin needs to not. I mean, if he's running for
Greg
president, he needs to not take a tuck on
talked
it.
to Greg about it, and he said that he was shocked by what Gavin had done because they were planning on having that hearing there. All right. In other news, we also had a swearing in at City Hall, Josh, and Mike Jordan and Oscar Gutierrez reelected, and then Wendy Santa Maria took the seat from District 1. What was that like, and what difference is it going to make as we go forward?
Well, the city council swearing in was different county. It was much more low key. There was not the elaborate presentation. There were no, keynote speakers or musical performances. And they do it where Alejandra Gutierrez, the former council member, she starts the meeting and then they bring in the new one. So they're both there at the same time, which is, and I heard this from a number of people. Yeah, Jerry, it's very awkward that you have to sort of be there when the person who's replacing you is taking over. I will say that former council member Alejandra Gutierrez came across very well in her final speech. She had a kind of a weight off her shoulders that had been there the last couple of years. She seemed very relieved, and she spoke probably in the most authentic way I've seen her speak in years. And she talked about growing up here, of course. She talked about her great grandfather working, building floats in Fiesta. She talked about how her uncle used to clean City Hall and told her one day one of my family members is going to have a seat here at City Hall. And so she had that sense of pride, but it didn't come across as I'm better because I'm from Santa Barbara. It came across as a real sort of genuine appreciation that she's had the experience of growing up here that if you haven't grown up here, you don't quite get in a few years. And so that was really a good moment for her. And I think if I was, advising her or somebody close to her, she should not go away. If she really likes politics,
Yeah,
she
well,
should,
why didn't we hear this before?
yeah, I mean, she needs kind of a reframing, a whole new team around her. She has the substance to serve, but she should stay involved and run again in 4 years. 4 years is not that far away, and I don't know if she'll win or not, but if she presents herself in this authentic way, I think she'll get a lot of votes from people who are very skeptical of her. Wendy Santa Maria was sworn in, and of course, there's a lot of buzz and a lot of energy around her, and she's very exciting
She's the youngest ever,
as
or
far as I know, that's what I reported. Hal Conklin used to have a book or has a book on the history of the council. She's 27, so
she's
she broke
younger than
Doss's
Doss
record.
was.
Yeah, she
Oh,
broke
good.
Doss's. That's 2024. So
Uh,
um,
Erase that from the books too.
the significance of Wendy Santa Maria, at least immediately, is what's going to happen with this rent control slash stabilization discussion. There are technically 4 votes now for some form of rent control, but what does that mean? How long is it going to take? Are Kristen Sneddon, Megan Harmon, are they going to go along, or are they going to want more research, understanding, analysis? What is the percentage cap? I think Wendy had floated 2% in her campaign. I don't think any of them are going to go for 2%. So there's a path and there's a road, and it's going to be complicated. The challenge for Wendy is she going to work to build a compromise to get something that people can support, or go double down and say 2%, let's call for an emergency meeting and do it right away? I think that's sort of the discussion. And, if you just study local, history or all politics, anybody who goes in there and tries to make immediate change as one person learns the hard way that typically that's not how you are
Yeah,
successful in the long
I
run.
gotta say, I've been kind of skeptical and hard on her, but what I'm hearing from City Hall this week myself is she's been very interested in getting briefed and learning about all kinds of things, every department, and then she's not going in there as a red hot and saying, this is what we got to do right away. So taking, I think, a very mature and measured approach to it, as well as, one that looks kind of at the whole city rather than just a district, which is, what I'm always on about, that we do want. And, if you look at this group, there really are, Randy, I think Mike, Megan, Kristen, Eric even, uh, and hopefully Wendy and Oscar can come along, we'll really have a citywide lens on things.
Maybe there's an Alfred E. Newman analogy there. Wendy.
Maybe they need
Well,
to watch your speech, Gwen.
I,
Hour and 30 minutes in.
all right, we got to go, but let me ask you, Josh, about something that didn't get a lot of attention. You had a piece about this George Floyd mural that I guess is getting covered up, and it just seems like we talk about 2018 and the debris flow. This was only 2020, and this was all going on. It was such a huge issue, and now people they're painting it over. What's the story?
It's interesting because the reporting I've been able to do has been in fragments, and I haven't been able to talk to the specific artists. They don't want to talk. I should say they declined to comment. Um, the
The
mural.
artist was, where was the mural?
So it was on the side of the EOS nightclub lounge on the corner of Haley and Anacapa Street. And George Floyd mural, two artists painted it. They painted, him and then the I Can't Breathe art, his quote. It went up in 2020 and it was a, huge moment, huge symbol, huge statement for Santa Barbara. But apparently it has been vandalized several times over the years, people painting over it, part of it, damaging it, writing things. And the story I was told was that the owner of the building got tired of having to constantly sort of repair this and decided to just have it painted over altogether. Now the artists aren't talking. The what I was told was the George Floyd face that was painted is from a template. So you see a lot of the same George Floyd murals around the country. So it isn't as though, it is not their original art, although parts of it were incorporated into it, the I Can't Breathe part. So I don't know how much say they have. And the sense is that they're not wanting to talk. And I haven't seen them talk on the record yet to anyone. Might be that they're not happy with this. I don't know. There is a plan. Oscar Gutierrez told me to paint something new and have a formal city process about having murals and public art. And maybe we'll see a George Floyd mural return. But I think from obviously, I mean, sadly, I got some hate email from people saying they were glad that the mural was removed. But throwing that out, I think, we need some sort of recognition and some sort of honor in the community in an appropriate spot that honors, that moment. And so hopefully
What
they
do
figure
they
out a way
say,
to do that.
Josh, with the people who are glad, what is their reason for being glad? What do they say?
Well, they're mostly just racist comments, like stuff I wouldn't want to repeat here,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
basically saying, that guy should not be memorialized in much harsher words. So, but I mean, I think that it's sad. It's a symbol. When you walk by, bike by, drive by, you see that it makes you, if you don't know that history, you think, you research, you look it up, and then you learn about that. And I think that's super important to have in the community. It was a very big mural, so I don't know
Well,
how
I
they're
mean,
going to
it was a
replace that.
moment when, the institutional racism was acknowledged and discussed, and it was an issue. And now, I just, with everything else that's going on, I just, been such pushback on it. Oh, you can't even talk about things like that. It's a very sad thing.
I quoted James Joyce, who we haven't talked about on the show in a
Yeah.
while. He lives in Oxnard now, but he was very upset by it and thought it was just like a bad statement for Santa Barbara to remove that. But he was, not surprised either that it didn't last forever. So
Well, it's quite a it's I agree with you. It's such a quick pendulum swing, in this country. But just to bring this conversation full circle, I mean, people who are pointing fingers at Karen Bass now are saying that the LA Fire Department were DEI hires, that the heads of the LA Fire Department. So it's like talk about political fire. I mean, it's a bizarre
Well,
moment.
you used a word to really close on things in your speech, Gwyn, precarious. We're at a precarious moment, and I think for a lot of reasons that's true. All right.
Well,
On
thanks
that
for what
happy
you
note,
do. Thanks for what you both do.
on that on that happy note, we'll we'll say goodbye for now and good luck for always. And thanks to Gwyn Lurie, thanks to Josh Molina. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.
thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Jared.